Considerations, changes to the agenda, comment, questions from the public not related to the agenda.
Could you turn your mic off?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I'm gonna try to turn it down. How am I now? Go ahead, just talk. Talk.
Set. Better.
Probably.
Probably.
Okay.
All set? All right.
Yeah.
So number 4 tonight is our informational presentation on our Community Recreational Center from Glenn Catita, Parks and Rec. Welcome, Glenn.
Good evening. I'm joined by Adrian Martin, who's our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Chair.
Hello, Adrian.
And in the audience, we have Dick Pecor, Scott Perrin, Nita Schaefer, and Jim Neary, who are also members of our Recreation Advisory Board.
Great, welcome.
Kick on the overhead. I practiced this earlier, shouldn't I?
Now we need the lights down.
Yeah. There. It should get a little brighter as we get warms up. Yeah. So, if you've been in the community for a while, for probably the last 20 years, you've known that there's been a lot of talk of a recreation center in our community. And so, this is an informational meeting. We're kind of doing a boards and committee tour, updating the various boards and committees of our community where we are in relation to the recreation center, what we've been working on. If you remember, in 2016, we did a conceptual master plan with Greenplay LLC out of Colorado, and we are also then which transitioned into a master planning effort in 2017 and 18. And the information that we've garnered from those conceptual master planning efforts has led us to then start looking at how and where the recreation center would be built in the community. And so this is kind of an update for you as a board, where we started 20 years ago and where we are today, and then also give you some looks at what the community center, recreation center will look like, and where we stand at this point. So there's a lot of kind of just an update, but there's a lot of answers still to be, questions still to be answered in the process as far as budgeting and such, but just kind of give you an idea of where we are currently with the plan. So as I mentioned earlier, the first recreation center committee was formed in 2002. Just after I came on board in 1999, we had a community survey that was completed, and one of the questions on that survey, amongst others, was, is there a want or a need for a recreation center in our community? Of those who responded, over 60% said yes, or probably for a center. Of almost 30 or 25% we're not sure. We're hoping maybe we would have gotten half of those to say yes. So there's a strong interest in having a recreation center in our community. We moved forward, we had a committee, and we were focused, and then it kind of slowed down as we saw a need for other amenity improvements in the community, being a town office, as the police department and the town office were being shared. Another question that we had was where this center might potentially go. And in 2005, the voters approved the Hazlet property purchase for $1.1 million. If you're unfamiliar with where this property is, it's a 14-acre parcel that has road frontage on Blakely Road across from Laker Lane. on East Lakeshore Drive. So as the town was proceeding with looking at a new town office, a second committee was formed in 2009 to kind of continue the movement toward a recreation center. And once again, the need to actually build this building and updates to the police department and the public works garage kind of put the stall. So we kind of fell in line as those were more pressing needs for the community than a recreation center. So a little bit of history of the Bayside Hazel property purchase. In March of 2004, again, the select board put out to the voters to purchase the property for $1.1 million. It was approved, and as of June 30th of 2022, there's only $153,000 left on that bond and will be paid off in June 30th of 2025. So a part of that process of purchasing that property, the Planning Commission, in fact, put out a survey to the community to determine what the best use of that property would be. And it came back as a need for it to be a public use property, and that they felt that, the community felt that a multi-generational facility such as a recreation center would be a great use for that property. And then was later supported by the Colchester Community Center Initiative, Heritage Project, the Mallets Bay Initiative, and that it kind of fits into the town plan as well. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2016, we brought in Greenplay. They came, they looked, we had a series of 3 focus group meetings, community-wide meeting that was held at the Colchester High School auditorium. And I'd say we probably had 150 to 200 people that evening. We've also did a random survey of 3,200 random surveys. And also, for those who didn't get random surveys, there was also an open link online survey that people could go on if they didn't get one in the mail. The final sample size of that was, we received back 360 and 76 open link responses for a total of 436, which made it a statistically valid survey. And then to follow up the conceptual, again, as I said earlier, then the more master planning took place to kind of refine those things that came out of the conceptual design, have more public input, specify amenities within the Bayside Park and Upper Bayside Park and Lower, and the Bayside Hazlet. And then we brought it to the select board, and they approved us to moving forward with some of those master planning efforts. So conclusions from the 2016 conceptual master plan was that there is a demand and need for more recreation facilities in our community, which we already know. We're a very recreationally based community with the lake here and all of the recreation amenities we already have in place. They felt businesses would benefit from a year-round recreation facility. It would also improve our community's health, economy, and social fabric, and that it would benefit the community to have a year-round recreational space such as a recreation center in our community. So I mentioned earlier the community survey that we did in 2016. What we saw was that of those who responded, 63% identified an indoor pool as important, 61% identified exercise room, 60% exercise equipment, and 53% identified a multi-purpose gymnasium that you could play basketball, volleyball, pickleball, fitness classes, etc. But what we also did was we asked the question of what would your top 3 amenities be if you were given choices. And as you can see, an indoor pool ranked number 1 as far as for first, second, and third priorities, followed by exercise equipment, gymnasium, and exercise rooms. It was interesting with the survey that was done in 2016 to the survey that was done in 2001, that the amenities that were identified in 2001 were the same as what was identified in 2016, but in a different order. But the top 4 were still identified, and that's kind of what we used to then move forward with the design of the recreation center. So again, the 2017, 2018 master planning efforts kind of told us what we already knew from the 16, but honed it in a little bit more. That they desire more recreation opportunities, year-round recreation opportunities. It also helped us look at the big question of where should we locate this recreation center. And in that study, it identified Upper Bayside as being a potential location. And so to move forward, we felt that using architects and planners from Colorado wasn't a good idea, and that we should bring in people close to our community in the state of Vermont to help us refine those ideas that we got from the community and move forward. So I'm going to go through some of, this is a photo that you probably all remember from Axel, who was here with Design Concepts, if you were involved in some of those meetings. This was an idea that what Bayside Hazlet property would look like. And the reason why it's like this is we needed a place to move the infrastructure that's currently at Upper Bayside Park to then free up space for the community center that was identified in the master planning effort. So as you can see, we moved a lot of the hard courts from Upper Bayside to this location. We had some pickleball courts, playground area, and a pavilion type style with walking trails there to kind of free up space to put the rec center on Upper Bayside. So in 2019, the select board authorized us to move forward to look at what it would cost to build out the Bayside Hazel property to make room for the community center at Upper Bayside Park. And as you can see, we're working through COVID at this point. It's September 2019, and as we work into September of 2020, we're kind of right in the middle of COVID, but we're still working through the designs based on the information we got from community input. And when we got to the 50% design and cost estimates for the Bayside Hazlet parcel, the cost of that was about $6 million, of which far exceeded our budget numbers. And so at that point in time, we felt like it made fiscal sense to put the hold on that design there and ultimately look at what the community's been wanting for 20 years as a recreation center. So at that point, we got permission from the select board to kind of pivot, as we're all used to doing during COVID, right? And we hired Weedman Landfear to work as an architect for the recreation center. And from here, I'm going to show you some of the designs and looks of what that recreation center will look like. So this is a bird's eye view of, to your left is Bayside Park, upper and lower, and then the Bayside Hazlet parcel to your right, which you can see that there is access to that property adjacent or across from Laker Lane on Blakely Road, and then there's also road frontage on East Lakeshore Drive. This rendering is also another bird's eye, but what we did is we placed in what the building, how it would sit on the footprint of the property. You can see that in that building, we've also are very heavy on solar on this building. You can see it on the roof. And then the block to the left of that is also a solar canopy that will be over the parking area. And if you're walking from the back parking lot into the facility, you'll see that this is what the exterior, the front of the building will look like. And then just off to your left, you can kind of see that parking canopy, the solar canopy there. As you enter into the facility, this is the reception area lobby. You'll see the reception desk on your left-hand side. On the right-hand side, there's a kitchen area that can be open for bake sales and such. Just past the reception desk on the left will be the men's and women's locker room. And as I get a few slides in, you'll also see a footprint view, so you can kind of see all the pictures and get an idea of where they all sit on the first floor. Just past the couch that's there is a stairway up to the second floor. There's an elevator also just past the reception desk, and you can kind of see the gymnasium straight ahead through that window. Kind of take a left by the snacks are. And down the hallway, you can see the gymnasium on your left. Down the right-hand side, there's classrooms and a studio space there that can be used for community gatherings and such, and classes and fitness classes. And this is the rendering of that classroom studio space. You can see there's a retractable wall that you can divide the space into 2 rooms. If you look straight ahead, you see the barn-style doors there. That's entryway into the kitchen area as well. And then a view of the gymnasium. You can also see that it can be divided into 2 courts. Above is the elevated walking running track, and the flooring can be used for several different sports. Pickleball can be lined there, volleyball courts can be lined there, basketball courts. I kind of joked with the select board that there'll be so many lines they'd be very confused as to which actually serves what sport. So we try to make it be able to be used by as many different activities as possible. So if you were to go to the second floor, this is kind of the lobby area of the second floor, where straight ahead is another studio space where there could be spinning classes, exercise classes, dance classes there. To the left is the elevated running walking track entrance, and then straight ahead you can see the fitness, cardio, weight area straight ahead. So this is kind of a view if you're standing in the middle of that fitness recreation center. So if you're looking down towards the building, you can see the cardiovascular stuff on the right-hand side, weights down the middle and the left-hand side. So there'll be windows, bank of windows that look out to the front of the building with the cardio, and then the weights and stuff. There's a series of windows that then people can look out onto the elevated walking track and the gymnasium. And so the next photo is kind of you do a 180 turn. This is how the other side, as you were to enter into the fitness space with the different pieces of equipment there. And a view of the elevated walking track, the running track. It's about 16 laps is a mile. So this kind of gives you, after you saw the fancy pictures, now this kind of gives you a blueprint of the layout of the first floor. You saw the entryway coming in. Our rec department offices will be relocated to this building. You can see the men's and women's locker room on the left-hand side. There's a hallway there. That hallway there is designed for a phase 2 indoor pool segment. So we're prepared when a phase 2 comes online to be able to add that right onto the building, as well as why the locker rooms were placed where they were, so they could have doors that enter into the swimming pool area. We have storage, and then you see the classrooms and the studio space with the wall that can be open and closed. And then there's lots of storage in the building. I've been kind of consulting with a gentleman who was the recreation director in Claremont, New Hampshire, who's a friend of mine who built a recreation center there. His key component, he said, is you can never have enough storage space. So I've been using him to say, do we have enough storage space? And so he's been a great consultant for me on this project. This slide identifies the square footage of all the different spaces. This building is going to be a 27,700 square foot building. And a photo of the second floor layout where we saw pictures of the lobby area, the corridor space, the studio space, and then the cardiovascular and weight equipment space. This is another bird's eye view of what the layout would be of that space with all the equipment inside there, so you can see the cardiovascular pieces of equipment, the Cybex machines down the middle, and then free weights lining the outside of the space. And then the square footage of the space. So the fitness weight room space would be about 4,000 square feet. So this is an exterior view. If you're driving in, the entry road into the facility will be located off of Blakely Road, so across from Laker Lane. So when you drive in, this is what you'll see, the front of the building, and then that solar canopy off to the left-hand side. You also see the grassed area in between the two parking lots is a stormwater retention area. And again, an overhead. Now that you've kind of seen, kind of bringing you back to what we started with, the view of the overhead of the facility. And then as we look at a potential phase 2 of an indoor pool space, we've also factored that into the look of the exterior too as well. You'll see that on the left-hand side attached to the phase 1 portion of the project. And then an aerial view of how that would sit on the footprint and what that would look like. The solar on top of that building as well. Another exterior view. I think we're coming to the end, and that's it.
Very good. Very exciting.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is very exciting. The size of it seems very manageable for a town our size. I mean, it's like anything else. You don't get something you can't afford to keep running.
Right. We figured to put something out to the community that that they would embrace, and then and put it on the footprint that if expansion was necessary in the future, that the options were there to do that.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Any comments?
Curious how much that estimate is.
We haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot of changing and moving parts right now with different components of the building, working with solar and the footprint, and during COVID, number of targets are keeping changing, but we're hoping to get to that number fairly shortly.
So is it like fee-based? I mean, will people pay fees to come in, or will it be taxpayer? How will it be funded after you build it? Like,
Well, we're trying to not have the operating costs impact the community and their taxes. So we're looking at probably a membership base, but also people to come in and use the facility for various programs wouldn't necessarily need to be a member to join in. If they're going to use some of the facilities, they would, but if they're going to come in and do an arts and crafts class or something like that, then there might be a fee attached to the class, but they wouldn't need to be a member to do the class. So what we're trying to do is keep the operating costs out of the tax base.
The local option tax will be the #1 drive for building?
Potentially, ultimately, that will be in front of the select board to decide how they, once we get that number, how they want to fund that.
That's great.
can you use local option tax for operating costs?
I don't want to, I believe it's for capital expenditures only. So just for buildings, but not for operating. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
It's hard to believe 20 years ago, we were talking about this when we first started. I was on the rec board at the time.
Yes.
And it was like, wow, hopes and dreams. Even back then, we're like, that could take 20 years.
We hope that's all it takes.
Yeah.
We hope that's all it takes.
People are always amazed how quick these things go up.
Mhm.
Wow.
But it takes a lot of behind the scenes work to make that come to fruition, and
Yeah.
a lot of different faces that have been involved with it through the 20 years. And the information that we got from the information in 2016 and 2018, it's not something that we can put together overnight. It's taken us several years because of COVID
Yeah.
to get to this point.
Yeah.
But the information that we've gotten from the public input's been pretty important in getting us to where we are at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like how you're already thinking about the future, too. Expansion's important. Yeah, that's
We're
great.
hoping people will love it and they'll want more.
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah. I think it's a very big bonus to the town. Very impressive. Town our size should have something like this. Something community-driven, something, we have no center, that's our problem. This will be a big bonus in that.
I think a lot of communities would be jealous.
Yeah, I
if
think
we
so.
are able to pull it off.
I think so. We already have fantastic rec programs. Good job there, so, we have great parks. I hear about that all the time. So this is just another added bonus for our community.
Well, I think, a portion that makes it successful is it's always continuously being identified in the town plan as an important piece of our community, the recreation component. And so, through the planning commission, DRB, select board, constantly identifying recreation as an important piece has made that easy for us as a department to be as successful as we are because of the support in all of our commissions.
Absolutely.
So,
That's one thing about being on a planning commission. The difference is we run policy all the time, and people don't realize a lot of time that something like this, all of a sudden we're involved in because we did put you in the master plan and we did look at what the rest of the community wanted. We kept making sure it was moving forward. Everybody's involved that way.
yeah.
That's awesome. Any ideas? Thoughts?
Good.
Yeah?
Exciting.
Anything else for us? Kathy?
I have nothing specific to add. Did you want to ask if there's anything you can
Is-
do in response to the presentation? Or
Yeah, absolutely. What do you need from us?
Well, our hope would be a letter of recommendation and support for some of the elements we talked about. The fact that the public then and now identified this land for public use, and to use that in alignment with recreation as part of the town plan. Put those things together in support of the community that the recreation center here would. We love that letter of recommendation.
I think we could accommodate that. Staff can put that together for us? Yes?
Yeah, I think given the timing, because you won't have another meeting for a month, it might be appropriate if you guys would maybe authorize Rich to write something related to support as it relates specifically to your role with the town plan, with anything that is in our adopted 2019 town plan, as far as how that relates to the presentation and the proposal. Unfortunately, you won't be able to work on that collaboratively given our open meeting law, but certainly I could share a draft once it's written, and you could reply to me.
Does that sound acceptable?
If you authorize Rich to sort of get that started, you have to put a vote to it. I like votes.
Okay.
So we need a motion.
Have to, but I think it's a good
Motion,
idea.
we have Rich write a letter from the planning commission that, in favor of the recreational facility based on meeting the town plan.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Great.
Yeah,
Can I
absolutely,
just-
thank
Can I
you.
just ask one more question?
Sure.
Is there a way you can engage the students, like the junior high students and high school students, in programming that they might like to see? Or if there could be a day or an afternoon that would be theirs, kind of dedicated to the teenagers?
In the center?
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely, we talked about that actually with the select board. So we do look for opportunities, and we will look at doing that
Great.
in some capacity once we build it, hopefully.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
certainly.
I have utmost faith that you'll get us from birth to death and everybody will have a good time in there.
Well, I hope
Yes.
so. It's quite a task. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you can do
A
it.
heavy burden on my shoulders, but thank you. So, thank you all for your time.
Absolutely,
Great to see
thank you. All right. So we're all set? So now we're going to move on to our reorganizational meeting and election of officers.
So I added this on here because we're a little overdue, but part of the reason I think we end up overdue is we try to get as many of our members as possible. So I will leave that up to you if you think you want to wait for Wendy to be present or to wait for a full board. We do have applicants. I'm hopeful that by the start of the new year, you'll have a board of 5. So it's up to you,
How long can we put this off? I mean, you're right, it's usually done in
October.
September, October,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there's any consequences for not doing it.
It's up to you. If you want to make changes, we don't want to make changes.
I don't think we have any changes.
You're happy?
I'm satisfied with keeping
Good to
Rich as
go.
the chair.
We'd like to put
I'm fine
Serena
with
on
both of you.
secretary.
Who's our secretary
Yeah,
then?
put Serena there.
Okay.
She wants another.
You're here.
Well, good thing I showed up.
That's right.
So do I nominate you as a slave?
So we'll need to start with a
But
nomination.
the question is,
The question,
As a
if
board,
you'd
we
like
got
to do
three
it
of
today
us.
without,
Yep.
without Wendy present or without a fifth member, you do have a quorum, you're absolutely
Yeah. I'm also-
welcome
I'm
to
all
do
for doing it.
so.
If we have any changes.
I do think to answer Sarita's question, a slate is the probably the quickest, most efficient way. You could put that out there and
Yep. Sweet.
So I nominate Rich to be chair and Rebecca to be vice chair
All right,
of
thank
the
you.
Colchester Planning Commission.
Need a second? Second?
okay, second.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
And I want to nominate Sarita for our secretary.
Wait,
I'll second that.
And all in favor? Aye. There we go.
That was the easiest one.
We're off and running. Thank you.
just catch up with you guys.
do I have to take notes or like type up notes or
You
anything?
do not.
Okay,
Yeah, you can delegate the whole thing.
okay.
That's the best part. All right.
Okay, that was quick.
All right.
So,
So next, we're going to run into our first discussion of possible work plan items for the calendar year. And we have an attachment on our last work plan from 2018.
you guys, just give me a moment here to
Yes,
switch
outdated.
over.
Yeah, right? Very outdated. Actually, we've got some, quite a bit
Switch over the
done,
input here.
which is nice.
Turn it off.
Thank you.
So I'll chat while I'm working through this. The goal, as you can see in my memo, is to get us started on work planning for work that probably begin in January. The idea is that tonight is it's a whiteboard free-for-all. It's anything you might think of or have talked about that hasn't been done that you would like to put up for discussion of potential work in the start of the next calendar year. I think this is meant to be really creative and open for people to throw everything at. We'll be able to use November, we are in November, my goodness. The December meeting to start to filter those out, where I can start to take some of this list, give you some idea. Hey, if we do pursue this, it's likely to take 40 hours of staff time, 6 hours of commission time, so that you can have an idea of where that might fit in as you start to slot work into the year. And then again in December, we'll have that, a broader discussion about, once you've got this list of items, which ones you might favor the most. But the goal for tonight is let's just get those items out there.
So one thing I thought of is that in the growth center, even without changes, it wouldn't be bad for us to review what we've decided and what we're looking at in the growth center. Now that we've got it building and started, just
Talking about the base code change.
the form-based code.
Base code.
But even if we just go through it and check and see where we're at, maybe a developer will have an idea of something you'd like to see while we're looking at it. It's going to be, I mean, we have, this is the first reading, whatever you call it, for Paul Simon's part, going to the DRB.
So they are at the preliminary plat level, yeah.
Correct. And that's how many units? Approximately.
Approximately 600.
Exactly. It's a big deal. And I don't think, I mean, for us, I would be happy to take our time to look through it and see what we have there, what we've decided on.
Or to see what's working and what's not
Right,
working.
yeah.
To evaluate it.
Yep.
Okay, it sounds-
So I've set this up just to show you guys, I zoomed in so you can't see the whole thing, but hopefully you can at least read it. Three kind of categories here. One is, anything that's development regulation related, so possible supplement 45. We don't get to go a meeting without working on some sort of supplement, so. We finished up 44, congratulations. That will be effective November 15, after its 21 days of waiting. These are things that you guys have, it's a combination of stuff I started to fill in as ideas. What Rich was just talking about here is the form-based codes, GD3 updates, so it's been a while since we've taken a look. I think that's a piece that's come up as a suggestion and at various points from various people over the last few years. I think when we had this discussion last January, the commission at that time felt that it would be more appropriate to look at the form-based code as a whole and not just a garage issue or just a street, intersection issue. And not necessarily to dive in, head to toe in every paragraph, but to look at it holistically. So that's why I've got that on there. These are two ideas that I've thrown on here. Again, this is your work plan, so feel free to delete anything. I do like the idea of at least having things on here for now that you can delete later. Parking standards is something that's come up frequently from a wide variety of sources, everything from the DRB to staff, and how we are requiring them and a potential for, is there a potential for reduction? We have pretty high parking requirements. There's some feeling that there might be some seas of unnecessary pavement that we require through our regulations that we might want to just take another look at. That potentially they're a little outdated in terms of the numbers. It may not be the case, but it might be something that we can look at. This is something that one of our summer interns did start to look at for us already, so the work might be halfway done.
Right.
At least as far as research of what else is being done around the country and towns that are similar in size to ours. So that's one thing. Signage, I just threw it on there. We've got some text updates. No policy, no major changes, but there's some language in there that could use some clarity, so I didn't want to lose it.
And you had at one time, Sarita, about electric.
About
Electric. For
EV
that
chargers
sort of activity, yes.
Yeah.
That would be a
We
good
talked about-
time to, when we're
Yeah.
looking.
and
Live
biking.
editing.
We said the future, this is the future.
We talked about bicycle parking
Yep.
updates as well, aside
Absolutely.
from just electric. So I'll give you a quick overview here of the three categories, and then we can go back to any one of them. Special projects, these are things that might take quite a bit more time, but may not translate directly to the development regulations. The open space plan was last updated in 1999 to 2000. It's almost older than some members of my staff. Not older than me. But it's probably ripe. I think that this could be a collaborative project with the Conservation Commission. It's ripe for some summer intern work. We access, if you don't know this already, we have a great connection with the university with a wonderful internship program where we can interview interns, identify projects that might also be of special interest to them. So it's a great project where we could really get a lot of help outside of our office at a real bargain and with some passion. So you've identified this. I saw it on the 2018 plan, so I think it's been out there for a little bit. It's in the town plan as an item. So I've got it on here.
I think it's important for Colchester, so I think the timing is right for that. We can tackle that one.
Yes, I agree.
And then the other category here, again, lots of blanks for you guys to fill in. Other tasks and events as you schedule your time. We're probably ripe for some training opportunities. Hopefully some of these are fun. They're definitely not meant to be anything that says you're not doing anything right, or anything wrong, but you know, are there new legal decisions that have come out that are good to know about, or how to manage crowds? So there's some time, I think, that might be fun to slot into something like that. At least in my time here, we haven't had the opportunity to meet with the DRB. I know that that's something that's happened in the past, maybe annually,
Right,
but you would know
yeah.
better. So it'd be good to schedule a joint meeting with them, talk through what they've seen in the regulations, anything they might want clarity from you as to what your intent was, or could be, anything that they've seen a lot of, as the people who are implementing these monthly. It'd be good to get that scheduled sometime in the new year.
Now, I saw, we've had a couple of times here locally with some of the older lots. We look at a lot of the newer stuff, but we don't look at a lot of the older properties. Single-family homes, small lots. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at some of the regulations they have for setbacks, how much lot coverage they can have. I mean, we don't build, even at the end of the road here, we're looking to build duplexes, triplexes, big buildings, and we don't build a lot of these smaller family lots these days with housing. I'd like to make sure we're user-friendly on these older lots, especially with the price tag of the houses in today's world, making sure there's sheds that are usable, you know, pools can be made use of, make sure they can make use of their lot properly. Times have changed, what people want to make use of their lots. That's what I'd like to see. Well,
Yeah, I think that would be good with the DRB, because they probably see a lot more of the issues
Yeah.
coming up than we do.
I'm writing it as you tell me,
Oh,
so
perfect.
it's your time to talk, and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Sarita, did you start to say something earlier?
I just, I think I wrote to both of you about housing, my concern about the housing crisis, and just, I was really relieved when you said that Colchester is doing our part, in taking on our responsibility. I just want to make sure we do that. And just a couple of questions I've had just about infill, in terms of people being able to build. I think the goal is not to kind of be building out, but to be infilling in communities. So again, people don't have to drive so far and can walk or bike, to places. And then I'm just wondering about inclusionary zoning. I'm just seeing that term a lot, and I don't know what that means as a proposal to look at the housing issue.
Yeah, so include, just to tell you what it is, and then you can decide whether it's anything you're interested in. I'll tell you factually that it is very divisive, I think, in a lot of communities. So inclusionary zoning is a requirement that some portion, a percentage, a base minimum number of new housing units have to meet some affordability standard. So, for example, it could be that 10% of all new multifamily housing has to meet the traditional affordability restrictions of the county's median income. That's, of course, there's a lot of play on that, depending on which community and which part of a community you're in, where they could say it doesn't have to meet quite that lowest standard, it could be a little bit higher to get workforce housing. It could be a bigger percentage or a smaller percentage. It could be a base number that says you have to build 20 in a year regardless. So there are some communities that have adopted that in Chittenden County, probably just as many that have not. I do know that it's not an easily adopted thing. It's very safe to say that there are a lot of people with very strong feelings about either argument in there. In both business community, the development community, and local government.
I've actually heard that also. I wasn't really sure what we were talking about. Yeah.
It's very buzzy. I've
Yep.
worked on ordinances myself. I do know that they are pretty complicated. they seem so simple at first, and then before you know it, you have 20 pages of text just defining what affordable means and what a unit means and what multifamily means.
But isn't there, when there's development, isn't it usually that a portion of it is affordable, or either?
That's what an inclusionary zoning would do. It would require that out of anything. There are other programs that exist, so sometimes in Act 250, there are some priority housing requirements. I know that, at least in Severance Corners, I think that they are meeting some priority housing requirements. I don't know that they have been required in some of the other developments. I'm not aware of any.
That's more of a funding source requirement?
It is purely it's you must do it, and then the town would also identify the mechanism for ensuring it happens. It gets very complicated because when you talk about affordable, you could be talking about rental or you could be talking about ownership. And then you have to figure out who manages it to make sure, because you're talking not just about the first sale price of a unit. So it's one thing to say the units must sell for lower than $300,000. You also have to work through a process for identifying the appropriate buyer. So you have two parts of that, right? You have the what is the unit cost, and then you have the who is the buyer. Doesn't really do you much good to make a unit affordable if the person buying it far exceeds the income limits. So then you have to work through what are the appropriate income limits that would go with that, and then you've got to figure out who manages that. So if you do successfully identify both of those things, who's making sure that those limits are met, that the house stays, or the unit stays perpetually affordable, and who's checking income of the tenant or owner as it turns over, or as the years go by. So that's what it is. I guess I would just say it is if it's something you look at it as a very large lift. I don't believe, without having checked, that it is identified in the town plan as a specific, it's a tool. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
It is a tool. I don't think that it as a tool is identified in the town plan.
Right.
It does speak to affordability, but I don't think it speaks to that as one of the tools to get there.
I guess I'm just wondering how we as a town, with the housing crisis, I mean, when we did the town plan, the housing crisis wasn't on us. Just wondering how as a town we are responsible for, meeting the needs of, worker homes and people that can't afford, some of the housing. That then not everybody's moving out of Chittenden County because they can't afford to live here anymore. What's kind of philosophically, what is the responsibility of our community, to help out with that?
We're pretty diversified.
Well, that's what I'm wondering,
I think we're lucky in Colchester where,
Yeah.
I hate to use the word organic, but
You hate
we
the word.
kind of organically have grown
Wow,
with a very
rich.
diversified base of housing. Even some of that, I'm not all that thrilled about myself because I don't like a lot of congestion. But on the other hand, you get a lot better price tag, and a lot of people like that stuff. They don't want the hassles of the house and the yards. They like to be able to do their own thing, go to our parks, our new community centers, such like that. And I think we're pretty lucky in where we have fairly affordable housing still. We go from one end to the other. I don't know. That's my feeling.
I think your options here are, you could undertake a holistic affordable housing study project. That, I'm not trying to discourage you from that, but if you did, it's something you would probably want to set aside at least 12 to 18 months for. We would probably want to grant fund a consultant for that. Those, I've seen them, I've worked on those studies. They're big, and rightfully so, because there are so many elements. So if you did decide to pursue something like that, I would not do it without having some sort of funding source to reach out to a professional consultant. It would also, I think, take up a lot of of your work program if you chose to do it. So you could do that. You could also sort of look at little pieces of it as you've started to talk about here. Infill housing is one very popular element that I've seen come from plans. Another might be to promote ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They are permitted mostly via state statute. They require that towns allow them. But there's other things that can be done in ways of promoting them, educating people. So that's something like the Planning Commission could have a role in. You know, as Rich said, even the tangential things of I own my 1,300, 1,400 square foot house, but I'm finding it very difficult to grow in it. The pressure to either upsize when you can't do that or move can create some affordability issues for folks who may have outgrown their starter home but can't quite afford the next home, or outgrown their small condo. So what options can you provide them for, I don't want to say aging in place because I'm not necessarily talking about an aged population,
Mm-hmm.
but so I think there are probably some bits that you could poke at. And so we could explore them from a low-hanging fruit sort of approach, if you'd like.
Because to me, it's also an economic development issue. You know, if people can't find housing, they're not going to move their businesses here. They don't have places for their workers to live. So, you know, that's really important to me, that people move to Vermont, especially people move to Colchester. And so how to do that responsibly and not divisively, but so however, whatever you recommend, I don't really have a sense of it, but I just want to, you know.
I think a big part of it, and we've identified, one of the first presentations I think I made to you guys was about, you know, the housing stock, the affordable housing stock that Colchester has. And, you know, we look at numbers of like what's come online across the county in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I think Colchester doesn't always rank very high, but we have to remember that we have a very large base of older stock that meets this need, and sometimes that gets lost when we start talking about regional numbers. And it's very important for a town that's affordability market is made up in that way, not to focus just on bringing in new units, but how do you maintain and keep the stock that's there? And that gets overlooked a lot because there's so much focus on new construction. Thankfully, some of the most affordable units, either through our mobile home parks, do get protected by some state laws, which is very helpful. I haven't necessarily seen any pressure. We have more than 500 units in Colchester that are in mobile home parks. Really nice.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well-loved communities of mobile home parks. I think, you know, to Rich's point, are they being served well? Are the folks who are there able to continue to live there? And are they facing any pressures because of any zoning issues? So, you know, we could take a look at that. I haven't seen any, but it's one element of maintaining your affordability stock.
That sounds good. Yep.
And for our infill, we did have to go to the 1.5 acre for a PUD. That was a big deal from infill. That was helpful.
Yep.
And that's really, we've seen that help in the village.
Yep.
One of the areas that has been targeted for some infill. But there could be some additional work we could look at for infill housing. It's a little challenging when you're talking about areas where you are limited by on-site septic. I mean, you could dream and support and want density in certain areas, but, you know, like the village maybe, but if it can't be supported by its septic, hands get a bit tied.
And the only other thing was Airbnbs, and I'm not really clear. I know, you know, I'm concerned with them because, again, they're tying up or utilizing affordable housing, and again, what's the balance between, you know, Airbnbs or our policies on Airbnbs and, you know, keeping housing available?
I'm gonna put that one down in the special projects because
That's a good question.
it could be
That's a
something.
very good question.
Should I have this Airbnb? I don't even know. I do write Airbnb.
Close enough.
We're gonna put that for now.
There you go.
It might be something that we could look at jointly with our economic development office. There's no shortages of presentation topics on these sorts of things. People sharing their thoughts from around the country, especially in communities like ours. I'm not sure that I've seen much in the way of a planning or zoning tool. Where people do address them, it's usually through a wider municipal tool, either to prohibit them. Some people have embraced them and said, we love them, but we need to see our share of resources from them, whether through a registration or
Okay.
special tax. But I don't know that those would relate to your work as a planning commission.
And just to the possible future projects, I loved all of them, you know. So whatever anybody wants to work on them, the open space plan or any of them, I just thought they were great, would be very exciting things to work on. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shouldn't this be something also to kind of get Public Works, get their feedback too on what their future plans are? You know, 'cause they update too. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you talk to them, they say, oh, well, we want to do this and this, and we want to make a bike path through here. And that would kind of somewhat affect how we approach things,
Yeah.
the open space, housing.
Yeah, and they may just have some standalone projects related to stormwater, roadway design, that inevitably.
Affects us.
And so I'll reach out to other departments as well. There may be something from the fire department, for example, that says, hey, we've always been thinking about this. So we'll collaborate with different departments.
I wish
You
let's
good?
put
I'm
some-
good.
Put some time schedule on that, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. At least it's not X, Y, and Z.
I was gonna say, it's kind of a short list.
Yeah, I know, right? It's much better.
And it's open, of course, we can add things to it, but
Yeah.
I am also hopeful that the December meeting, Rich and I have talked about this. We haven't gotten any new requests for zoning changes since we last talked in April, but there were 3 items from the April meeting which you did not make decisions on. So it might be appropriate at the December meeting to invite them back. And you can either hear from them again or make decisions if you want to include them in your next work plan. I think that the 3 you'd previously heard from were all not aligned with the town plan. I don't believe that the reason for continuance of any of them was necessarily just time, with the exception of the form-based code piece. That was one of their requests. So if there's anything that does come up and that you decide to take up from that, we'll want to make sure we're leaving room in your work plan as well for anything new that might come up in the spring that you might find interesting and worth taking up.
Okay.
All right?
We're good? We're all good?
You guys are so easy. All right. Where are we?
So we're at staff updates.
ourselves through the work plan staff updates. Very briefly, again, Supplement 44 was adopted by the Select Board at its October 25th meeting. So that means it'll be effective November 15th. I'm very close to getting the final document ready to go, and then I'll get that online, just a cleaned up version. I'll get that in your inboxes. I'm also working with somebody who will be able to take that document and make it a little bit more user-friendly, purely from a layout graphic standpoint, who will make the numbers right and the indents right, and maybe put some color in there to make it more friendly. Just put some nice cosmetic touches on it. I know it's not an easy one to work through, so that is the update there. As soon as that's ready, I'll let you know. Recruitments to boards and commissions. As I stated a little bit earlier, there is an open position on the Planning Commission. There's an open regular position on the Development Review Board, and an open position for an alternate. The DRB uses an alternate, so that when there are quorum issues, they don't have to postpone something that might be very time sensitive in meeting any statutory requirements for review. So those two are open. If you know of anybody who are interested, especially in our DRB positions, we have all jobs are hard. That one tends to be a little bit more time consuming and maybe a little harder to understand for people as to what the position does. But you guys, you know this, you do this stuff. If you know of anyone or you talk to anyone, I trust that you can explain the work that goes into any of these to anybody that you talk to. But if you don't want to, feel free to send anyone our way. You guys all know Zach. Zach staffs the DRB, so he can, and the chairman, Matthew, is happy to talk to anyone as well. That's my pitch.
Okay.
There's even something in here you can quote if you'd like. The town is also returning to advertising its youth positions. I haven't been fortunate enough to have been part of that just yet. I think with COVID it stopped. But for anyone who doesn't know, the town has youth positions on its Planning Commission and DRB. And maybe rec advisory as well? Is there a youth position there? No. Yeah. So they're non-voting members, but they are still fully participatory. So we had a presentation to Colchester High School about these, and I understand there might be some interest. So you may have a youth member in the new year. We'll see.
That's good.
I also brought a readiness assessment just for boards, and I was going to give it to you, Rich, about having youth on the board and some recommendations on how to really engage them.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, and I'll give one to you, Kathy, too.
So what was kind of neat, if you don't mind me just saying real quick, the staff members who went to the high school to present on this program that we have were both Colchester High School graduates.
Nice.
So it was really nice, I think, to put those graduates back into, and young graduates too. So I mean, these are not people who were, there 40 years ago. These are, young people who were there probably in the last 5 to 10 years at most. That I understand connected very well with the students, and hopefully made a very good impression about public service. And so we'll see where that goes. Moving on, you have a set of amendments from City of Burlington. I looked through them like I always do, and what I look for when I read these is to see, is there anything that's going to affect Colchester? Do we have to be worried that all of a sudden on our shared border there's going to be an industrial nuclear power station? I kind of also look to see if anybody's doing something super cool. Planners love to copy. We try not to recreate the wheel if we don't need to. So I look for super cool things that may be of interest to you or relates to anything like that. This particular set of amendments, sorry I didn't find either. Not that they haven't put hard work into it, but the Trinity campus, I think you guys know where that is, does not border us. And neither does their South End Innovation District overlay. I didn't necessarily find any compatibility with work that we're currently undertaking, but
I was just wondering, do you have a Zoom link to that? Or could,
do.
if you can send it to me? I'm curious about the
Yeah.
South End project.
Yes, I do have a link for that.
That would be great.
I'll forward that on. Let me take
Thank you.
You'll see that we do, there are some towns that are churning out amendments faster than they get adopted. It's actually remarkable. I don't know how they manage it. Burlington does probably, I think, like 6 or 7 a year, it seems. Seems like there's so many. But that was that. So you are, of course, invited to comment as a body. I have to ask you if you'd like to. No need? Okay.
We're good. I'm good.
Planning Commission scheduling. Okay, so we're approaching that time of year where there's a lot going on for a lot of people. We're taking our little victory lap after supplement 44. Adding new members, hopefully by the new year. So talking with Rich, we've proposed a schedule here for you that includes just the one November meeting that we're having tonight. Not having a meeting on November the 15th. December 6th, we would come back, as I've said, talk about anything else you'd like to add to our list. If you've had some time to think about it, talk to anyone else that you've heard from. Put your memory cap back on. Talk through that on the 6th. And not have that second December meeting. It starts to get close to several holidays. So not have that second December meeting. Return in January. And I did highlight here that the first meeting, the first Tuesday of the month is that January 3rd. So I wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not that's a bit too close to the new year or travel plans for anyone, if you're game to meet or if you'd like to look at a different day.
That would work best for me. Just the 3rd.
Third
Yeah,
works for me.
I don't mind coming back from Montpelier, but if that was good for everybody,
It works for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would
go
work.
for it.
Okay.
There you
If
go.
anyone was
Yeah,
traveling
just
or still enjoying their new year someplace exciting. Okay, so we'll keep January 3rd. And we can return to this in December to figure out if January is a 1 meeting or 2 meeting month. But I at least wanted to get a date on your calendars. So it'd be January 3rd. That is it for my staff notes.
Perfect. All right. So we need a motion for the minutes?
Do we have the minutes?
Yep.
Yep, right here.
Oh, okay. Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the last meeting on September 20th.
Second? Need a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it's passed. And that's it? You know, nothing else you need from us? We're all good over here? So I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy.